I guess my take on it is I have that part in my mind too. Like, is this true or is this not true about, aliens or out to get us? Or are they not?
In a subtopic of the subtopic of the conspiracy on a conspiracy. According to my research into extraterrestrials in the last 6 months anyway. So that leads up to January of 1967. In 2 months, you've got over 25 reports of people seeing this thing in this small town. And how much of that is mass hysteria, or if you go looking for something, you're going to find it, or is it genuine phenomena? Who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
But everybody describes the same thing. These red eyes are a recurring theme in all of these reports, and I'm not going to go through all the reports because, one, they're very similar, and two, it's going to take up a lot of time. So we were in the closet, which is known a lot of bad things to happen in this closet, and we were in there, and I had this male voice in my head that said, "Get out of this closet." So I took a step out, didn't bother to relay that to Teresa, who was sitting on a chair at the very back of the closet. And when I say closet, it's like a big walk-in type closet, not just like a little closet. So she's sitting on a chair, running the spirit box at the same time, and it said, "Shut this door." And of course, we didn't do any of this. So next thing you know, all of a sudden, Teresa comes launching out of the closet with the chair about 4 feet out.
I totally wasn't down to go hang out at the dollhouse all night, because I'm I'm a scaredy cat, and I was like, I don't want to do that. That sounds like crazy. The scarier thing was that they all decided to, so I hung out next to the car, like, by myself. I don't know how long they were gone. It felt like maybe about 20 or 30 minutes or so, but I was just kind of chilling and, like, on my phone, All of a sudden, like, I just was looking up and kind of browsing, like, the tops of the gravestones, or the tombstones. Something just kind of caught my eye, and it kind of moved from behind one gravestone to another. And it didn't look like really solid. It looked kind of like a shadow sort of thing, but it moved behind from one to the other, kind of right to left. I was like, that's just my eyes playing tricks on me, or like the light reflecting off cars driving by or whatever. Then, like, I was kind of looked back down at my phone and then was just glancing to see if they were coming back or whatever. But I'm just going to call it thing or shadow or little Hellier-esque goblin creature, whatever, like, kind of peeked over the headstone, like, and I could see its eyes. It was like these eyes they were either yellow or red. Like I said, I'm kind of bringing things back to memory.
Anita 4, after returning from the edge of space, there's something strange happening beneath the surface of Antarctica, and it's got nothing to do with Nazi UFOs. So, okay.
Let's blow that first theory right out of the water.
So we're just blowing things there.
Skirted around the Ohio River till we came to Smithland, Kentucky. A town that I had never been to before, didn't know it existed. It was a small, quiet little town. And we turned toward the river after passing a few side streets, and I was in shock. Because at the end of the road, on the west, sat the very house I had flown around in a dream just 2 years ago. Now, though I never dwelled on that dream, I just remember it like profoundly because it was such a unique dream. And the house was a very unique house, and here it sat.
Yeah, all of these things happen in the client's mind, and I'm a guide, and it's you that's got to open the door. But at the same time, it is remarkably easy to manipulate people, even unwittingly at times, to experience emotions and memory, even physical sensations and unwanted thoughts in a way that they did not intend to, and it can radically change their day. And you don't even have to be a hypnotist to do this, but I think a hypnotist has a certain ethical responsibility to be careful with their words, especially with clients, people who have paid you and they trust you to help them, not to do that unwitting damage or steer them in the wrong direction.
Well, I wish I knew what was going on. I mean, this is a phenomena that's kind of, it's kind of come and gone, waned back and forth, but it's been fairly steady now for at least 4 years.
But he would never speak for what happened to the boys the last night, and he says that's their story to tell, and when they're ready to tell it, they will tell it. But for him, the last night, he could hear the bedposts upstairs in the boys' room, jumping up and down, banging. He realized that he was paralyzed and he couldn't move. Their dog Harry would stand up at the foot of the bed, spin around in a circle, throw up, lay down, stand up, spin around in a circle, throw up, and he just kept doing it. And he was paralyzed. He couldn't get up to help him. And at that point, Kathy had kind of changed form. She had kind of appeared as this old woman, but she also started to levitate up off the bed and to float away.
When I was talking about these orbs of light, they started coming towards the car, so I said, let's go. So we were backing the car up, and then my friend who owns a bed and breakfast down in that area, he had to get something from the back of the SUV. So he parks the car as these orbs are coming towards us still in the sky, and they're like maybe 10, 15 feet from the car now. And they're just moving around like I said, like something out of a movie that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And my friend next to me, poor thing, she was crying because she was terrified and she had no idea what was going on. And we both looked in the rearview mirror and we saw a tree that was next to the car. And we noticed that it wasn't a tree. It was a being of some kind, because it bent over and looked down into our windows of the car. This thing was at least 10 feet tall, and all I can explain it as is like the grays that you hear of when people see aliens.
Yeah.
It was like a gray, tall being, skinny as can be, huge hands and long arms with a big head. And it was peering down into the vehicle. We couldn't see its face because it was pitch black here.
St. Louis is Cahokia, and this is another fascination of mine, is a lot of the haunted places are around these mounds. And that just opens up a new doorway of conversation here, and down the rabbit hole we go. I believe that Native Americans were in touch with these invisible, well, we call them invisible, these entities, the spiritual world. It's all around us, and through their rituals and everything they did, they opened up these doorways.
It's summer, but it starts to get incredibly cold. Like, incredibly cold. To the point that I'm shivering right now because I'm remembering it. And the sea at night, it has that oily feel where you cannot never really see where the sky ends into the sea. It all becomes like an amorphous mass. It looks at you and it gives you the chills. And it's dark apart from there's no moon. And I guess it's almost like a movie in many ways.
A guy is standing at the door. Now, the guy who's standing at the door said something by way of introduction. I don't have any idea what he said, but he had on dark clothing. He was a man in black. I mean, everything about him. What did Alan, the experienced ufologist, field investigator, occultist, blah, 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 what did I think about it? I didn't. I said, come in. And he sat down and he said something about Ralph Lale. And of course the obvious first question is, who the hell are you? How the hell did you know where I am? And what the hell are you doing in my room? None of that occurred to me. And, but I don't know his name. I didn't ask. I don't know how he found out where I was, or more to the point, where I had been the previous night, because believe me, there was no one else on that icy road other than Jim Mosley and the Daredevil twins. It was just not something that rational people would do.
We were looking at that and wondering, is there an effect from the geomagnetic energy? And Darian was the one that found just this insane history of violence here.
Oh, yeah. When we dug into what, I guess if you're not from a place that has epic levels of violence or poverty, it may be kind of surprising, but the history of violence in Somerset goes way, way back. We were trying to figure out how it was seen from the outside, to get a scale, to get a kind of an idea of the scale of it. And so we started looking into like the Cincinnati newspapers and seeing how they were reporting violence in Kentucky in general. And we found, man, it goes so far back. Even in the late 1800s, there are just headlines about Somerset's reign of terror and, you know, all of it's like the 10th murder in 7 days or something.
So what he's referring to, and I could be very mistaken here, the ferryman, Ferryman, is what you should be looking for.
Okay.
That was part of the understanding that the explanation I was given was ferryman, not corpsman. But that could be that part of the, you know, just like in Hellier with the goblins being called 700 different names.
Yeah.
Could be the same situation. Here we call them, that's what we call them over here. So if you look into it and you look into Ohio specific lore and you look into some Native American lore, you'll find some pretty interesting articles about them pretty quick.
A popular theory that I discovered on Reddit, where there's like a Reddit thread all about the Hollow Earth, and there's this thing about there being like 7 entrances to the Hollow Earth.
Yep.
Oh, you knew about this, okay.
Yeah, no, but go on.
Okay, well, I don't, so you probably know way more about it than I do. I just was kind of going off. But supposedly, like, the big theory is that you know, the Mammoth Cave is one of those 7 entrances to the Hollow Earth, that Symes, if that's his name, moved to Kentucky because he knew this and was actually exploring the cave trying to find that entrance.
Yeah, and you know, and so that also makes me think of going back to the spirit of place, or the magic of place too, is, you know, people go to Skinwalker Ranch and they're like, wow, I had these really crazy experiences and I really enjoyed it, and then there are other people who are like, oh hell no, like I don't need to go there, or they have this really horrible encounter.
Yeah.
So it's just finding what place are you energetically compatible with. And so, I don't know, I really need to get out to Utah and that whole area and, you know, hike it.
Amazing. I was really hoping that you were going to say something about the Furby and a mitten, because I'm so sad that wasn't recorded.
I couldn't leave it alone. I had to.
So I was in my bedroom. It was the middle of the night, and I remember that I wasn't really tossing or turning or trying to sleep. I was just very comfortably lying in bed. And I rolled over, and out in the hallway, I saw an old woman. And there was no old woman in the house. People have said, like, well, was it your grandma? No, it was not my grandma. No old women were in my house. And she had a bathrobe on, she had slippers, and she had, like, crazy bed head. And I remember she just was very slowly walking through the hallway, and she stopped and turned to stare at me for probably only a second or two. It felt much longer, but it was very, very short. And then she just turned and continued walking towards what's our linen closet. So it took me about 2 seconds before I screamed for my mom. And the interesting part about it is that, my mom came running, of course, but she actually ran through the old woman.
I lived in eastern Kentucky for a while. We owned a bakery in eastern Kentucky. About once a week I would go to our food distributor, which was about 2 hours north, but still in eastern Kentucky. One time I was traveling back to our business. It was in a small town called Whitesburg, and I was traveling back with the product in the back of the car. But I was going around this curve at one point. It's daytime. It's like probably 3 p.m., I would say. It's like just early afternoon, where in eastern Kentucky the shadows start falling because of how high the mountains are. But it was still daylight. And I turned this corner, and above the mountain right in front of me is this giant silver, for lack of a better term, UFO. It was slightly elongated. It wasn't a perfect, circular shape. It was slightly elongated. But other than that, it looked like a classic 50s UFO.
I'm in the opposite room outside of where India is. She's sitting down listening to the spirit box, and if you're familiar with the SS method, you have someone who asks the questions and someone who receives them and answers anything that they hear through the spirit box with noise-canceling headphones so you can't hear the person asking the questions. I'm asking questions, and I'm actually hearing really weird things going on in this room, like I'm hearing walking and stuff like that. And India a few times answers me absolutely directly. It was really freaky.
You said,
I'm like,
where are you right now? And I immediately say, I'm right in front of you. And it's like we could not have I could not have done that again if I tried.
And I'm whispering, so there's literally no way she could even hear me, right?
I've had a couple when I was quite young. The first one would have been when I was maybe, I think, 5 or 6. And it was in my parents' house, the house I grew up in. And I remember I was going up the stairs to see my mum for whatever reason. She was in the bedroom. And I remember when I was walking up the stairs, I got this really bad feeling. And I looked behind me and I saw this human figure, but it was totally black, like a solid black shadow.
When we went to get our packs and put them on, the silence was broken by like a whistle. It kind of sounded like a bird, but more like something mimicking a bird.
Or like an alarm. Or,
yeah, like
something
it just,
more mechanical.
It didn't sound natural, but it sounded like it was supposed to be a bird or something. If that makes any sense.
You know what's so crazy? This place, okay, it's got the vibes and stuff. It doesn't feel evil to me like Skinwalker Ranch. It feels very ancient, elemental, but it's really weird because when the sun is out, it feels so peaceful and beautiful, and it's a beautiful place. But the second like a cloud hits the sun and it gets dark, like you feel the energy shift instantly. I can't imagine what it's like when the sun is going down and you're seeing it and then it's gone. Like, I'm sure it's completely a different place at night, which is probably why I had that dream telling me not to go out there.
So I decided to drive, and I was with my husband, and it was like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. We're just like getting, on the road, and Mount Shasta was glowing. And when I say glowing, like, when you drive past the city from kind of far away and the city will glow because of streetlights? So it was like that. But Mount Shasta doesn't have a city. And it was like where Mount Shasta City is like the very, very base of the mountain. It's a very small community. And this was up high, like relatively high up the mountain. And I thought I was hallucinating. And I said to my husband, I was like, do you see that? And he was like, yeah, I do. What do you think it is? So we're trying to rationalize it. And I'm like, there's a ski slope up there. Maybe they left all the lights on or something. And he was like, yeah, but wouldn't that just light up half the mountain? Because it's only on a partial part of the mountain and doesn't go up that high. And so we're both sat there, kind of scratching our heads. And then all of a sudden, this thing leaves the mountain, like a light, and then the glow goes away.
The mist followed him, and the mist drove itself into the neighbor's backyard, and then the connected backyard to that neighbor's backyard, and just kept going. My neighbor across the street remembers the fog to this day. We both do, but he never saw the little gray guy inside of it. But we were both. It's just puzzling enough that this cloud just rolled through the backyard, so that was enough for him to remember.
Yeah. This is what reminds me when people in the UFO community now say we're a computer, was it simulation or something? Because they're flickering. Being a computer simulation is just the latest surface idea. There used to be devils and angels, and then it was rocket ships. I believe when they're perceiving something flickering, they're actually seeing the truth about how reality is created in these flickers. But they're associating it with a computer. But I don't think it's a computer simulation at all. It's just that they happen to be perceiving reality as it actually gets created by this flickering, this constant, each instant. We're coming in and out of reality.
I say that very loosely because I have a very loose definition of what an alien is. I'm not convinced that a lot of paranormal activity that has been suggested to be ghosts isn't aliens. I'm not convinced that Bigfoot is not a fairy. I'm pretty convinced that Bigfoot's a fairy. I think a lot of our language separates things that actually overlap quite a bit. So that's why I say my definition of an alien is very loose.
Until next time, keep the fire going.